Okay then, troops, today we have some unbelievable news to share with you in this video. Of course, we are going to be talking about Hedera Hashgraph HBAR and how the potential new chair of the SEC, Mr. Brian Brooks, is a HBAR Foundation board member. Now, this could have huge ramifications for Hedera Hashgraph HBAR, its entire community, and really cement Hedera Hashgraph as one of the leading distributed ledgers to come out of this industry and fundamentally change the world. That's exactly what we are going to be getting into in this video, ladies and gentlemen. We have a couple of clips of Brian Brooks himself towards the end, actually testifying in front of Congress and really demonstrating his understanding of Web3 and this industry as a whole and what it means for us as everyday individuals and users. We're also going to be playing a clip before that of Brandon from the HBAR Bull talking with a co-host and, of course, Rob Allen about their takes on the matter. And I'll be showing you how we know Brian Brooks, one of the 5 potential candidates for the new chair of the SEC, is a HBAR Foundation board member. So yesterday in our daily market update, we spoke about this big news, and this is news that relates to 5 probable candidates for the new position that Gary Gensler previously held, and we're all very sad to see him leave, of the chair of the SEC. And you can see Daniel Gallagher. We've got Mark, who, of course, is already an SEC commissioner. He's came out and been very against Gensler and his regime, actually, even though he worked under him. We've got Hester Peirce. Then, of course, we've got Brian Brooks, which is a HBAR Foundation board member, but is ultimately a board member to further the role of Hedera as a network globally in regards to adoption. Certainly, if he becomes the chair of the SEC, he may be pivotal in seeing the United States' adoption of it. And we can see just how well Hedera is doing on the back end of all of this. And then, we've got Jay Christopher, who is a former CFTC chair. He'd have played a hand in the whole Ethereum commodity status thing previously. But this is huge. This has massive ramifications, not just for Hedera, but actually I think Brian Brooks is good for the entire industry as a whole because he truly understands it, and we'll demonstrate that in the clip that we have of him testifying in front of Congress at Capitol Hill, talking about what Web3 really means, what's going on here fundamentally. And one thing you can gauge from that is he really truly understands this industry and is going to do us all a favor, I believe, certainly if he becomes the SEC chair. Of course, he's worked previously as the chief legal officer at Coinbase. He's been involved in policy making, financial markets, banking. An unbelievable candidate, guys, that we're personally backing for more reasons than just he's on the board of the HBAR Foundation. So how do we know Brian's on the board of the HBAR Foundation? Well, this was a report that was released by the HBAR Foundation back on March 2023. Fast forward to the 18th of November when you're currently watching this video. If you're watching it today, that is on the time of release. Brian Brooks was appointed to the board of the HBAR Foundation. He's now the potential, or one of the potential, new SEC chairs. He's one of the 5 likely candidates that have been put forward. And in my opinion, he is the likely candidate. Let's dive into this. Brian Brooks, a fintech and global policy heavyweight, has joined the board of the HBAR Foundation, the organization helping drive adoption of the Hedera network. Brooks, who has substantial experience in financial policy, banking, digital assets, and Web3, brings with him a wealth of experience to his new board duties. The HBAR Foundation to date has allocated funding of more than $408 million and awarded over 225 grants. That's gone up significantly, by the way, since the time of this publication, to groundbreaking distributed ledger technology projects, empowering entrepreneurs to build economies on the open-sourced, leaderless proof-of-stake Hedera network. We'll talk about that importance of leaderless when he gets into his congressional testimony. Prior to joining Bitfury as the CEO and board member, Brooks has served as the acting comptroller of the currency, where he was the administrator of the federal banking system and chief executive of the 3,500 employee federal agency responsible for chartering and supervising banks comprising 70% of all banking activity in the United States. He is the former chief legal officer at Coinbase, leading legal, compliance, internal audits, government relations at the nation's leading distributed asset platform. He has also served as a member of the board of directors of Fannie Mae and the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, and a voting member of the Financial Stability Oversight Council. This is somebody people listen to, ladies and gentlemen. Often referred to in the media as the first fintech comptroller and crypto comptroller for his work advocating financial innovation, Mr. Brooks led the government's efforts to provide regulatory clarity for stablecoins, digital asset custody, and a development of blockchain payment networks, and granted the first federal bank's charter to the cryptocurrency company. He also launched Project Reach, a national partnership of civil rights organization, tech companies, and banks to promote financial inclusion through greater access to credit and capital. Brooks commented, "Advancing responsibilities, widespread adoption of DLT and Web3 is something I feel passionate about." We'll find that out later on in this video. And I am thrilled to work with the talented team across the HBAR Foundation to make this a reality. The HBAR Foundation, through a comprehensive grant program, has successfully grown awareness, accelerated access, and increased commerce in the HBAR economy by providing expert support across technology, marketing, and business development. Together, we will continue to be thought leaders and drive the industry forward on the vision of making Hedera the trust layer of the internet. And we can go on in regards to his credentials. Fast forward to today, he may just become the most important person in the United States as it relates to the industry. This is why I love Hedera. It really is funny to me the amount of salty people there are out there because Hedera is doing well right now. Don't be that person. You should want other people to do well. And when you look at Hedera's accolades, just a couple of the partnerships that they have of the hundreds most blockchains could only dream of. And this is huge. This is unbelievable news, ladies and gentlemen. What I want to do is go all the way back to the HBAR Bulls video when this was announced, listen to their thoughts, and then we're going to finish off with a clip of Brian Brooks, the potential next chair of the SEC and the HBAR Foundation board member, talking about the industry as a whole and what it's really trying to do. Let's dive into that clip from the HBAR Bull.
Yeah, great points. And, we do focus on use cases and network utilization all the time. But another big story that came out this week was Brian Brooks joining the HBAR Foundation. And this kind of blew my mind. What were your initial thoughts when you saw Brian join the HBAR Foundation board?
Well, a big smile came across my face right away. So Brian Brooks is one of the most eloquent speakers that I've ever seen when it comes to topics of fintech and regulation. I follow regulations pretty closely. I've always been kind of a C-SPAN nerd, right? So I love watching C-SPAN and watching the regulators up there on Capitol Hill doing what they do. And so, of course, I've watched a lot of the crypto hearings that have gone in front of the Senate. And Brian Brooks is one of those voices of reason. When he speaks, the leaders listen, right? And I love some of his analogies. We were talking a little bit ago about rules of the road. I actually lifted that from Brian Brooks. He talks about, imagine if truckers in the United States didn't know that the speed limit was 75 miles an hour, right? And that instead of having a speed limit, they had these kind of 4-factor tests, like how much sleep the driver had the night before, what the weight of the payload was, what the quality of the tires was, and all these things. And that would determine, like, you got to know what the speed limit is. So he's just a great speaker, and he's a voice of reason. And like I said, when he speaks, the folks up on Capitol Hill listen. So I think that he's a fantastic addition to the HBAR Foundation board. Really happy to see that. I think it's a great thing for Hedera and really a great thing for crypto in general.
So Jeremy, it's great to see him as an addition. And here's what he said about joining the HBAR Foundation board. Advancing responsible, widespread adoption of DLT and Web3 is something I feel passionately about, and I'm thrilled to work with the talented teams across the HBAR Foundation to make this a reality. The HBAR Foundation, through a comprehensive grant program, has successfully grown awareness, accelerated access, and increased commerce in the HBAR economy by providing expert support across technology, marketing, and business development. Together, we will continue to be thought leaders and drive the industry forward to deliver on the vision of making Hedera the trust layer of the internet. And Jeremy, in this week's segment for Shark Bites with Rob Allen, he has some thoughts as well, so let's listen to that. But he also got into a lot of other stuff. Welcome back, Rob.
Hey, Brandon. It's great to be back.
Yeah. So, Rob, the thing I wanted to start off with today is some big news we got from the HBAR Foundation, and that's that Brian Brooks, he's the former comptroller of the currency, so one of the top regulators in the United States, joined the board of the HBAR Foundation. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I think it's an amazing story and a huge appointment. Brian was, as you say, a former federal regulator, but also served his time on crypto boards. He was in Bitfury. He was chief legal officer at Coinbase. So he brings a huge amount of experience and expertise across the piece, and I think is a great fit for the foundation board. I mean, boards are necessary parts of an organization to set culture, to set governance, to set strategy for an organization, and to oversee risk. So I think he has all the stripes to do that, and he joins Shane Higdon, Jason Lowe, and Bob Migliorini on the board. So they've said that they're growing that board over the course of the next year. It's very important that you get the right appointments to a board, which sets, like I said, the overall culture and strategy for the organization. So great to see what Brian's going to bring to the foundation, and watch this space.
Yeah, it surprised me for sure. I would say that Brian is probably the best spokesperson, not just for Hedera, but for the crypto industry in general when it comes to regulators and legislators just across the board. I was just impressed. Like you said, he's I think the CEO now of Bitfury. He was the chief legal officer at Coinbase. He was the CEO for a short time at Binance US. Just a really impressive resume, and obviously he is. Hedera is on his radar. So I was just happy to see it. It's something that I wasn't expecting, but it's good to see.
And that range of skills really shows the positioning, not just a foundation, but the Hedera ecosystem as a whole. So I think it's super positive and very bullish.
You can really see Brandon, the co-host, and Rob Allen's excitement there. And it's for a reason. We know that the next chair of the SEC is likely going to be a crypto-friendly one in line with the new regime that is about to take over in January. And who better to be at the helm of that than Brian Brooks? And it's just amazing for us that he happens to be a HBAR Foundation board member. Let's now take a look at Brian Brooks really schooling Congress and the world on what Web3 is and what it means.
What we're hearing now is Web3. Policymakers need to understand the nature of Web3. This is a hearing about a component of Web3. Now, along those lines, what are the characteristics that defined Web 1 and Web 2?
Mr. McHenry, thank you very much for that question. I think that's critical to understanding what we're all trying to build here. So the characteristic of Web 1, if people remember their original AOL account, was an ability to look in a curated walled garden at a set of content that was not interactive but was presented to you on AOL the way that Time Magazine used to show you the articles they wanted you to see inside of their magazine. Just you could see it on a screen. The innovation of Web 2 was that suddenly you could not only read content, but you could also write content. This is when the blogosphere became a big thing. People remember this from the late 90s, the early 2000s. The reason for the centralization of the internet, of course, was that all of that activity was being monetized by a very small number of companies. Facebook, as the chairwoman mentions, Google, and 2 or 3 other companies. What makes Web 3 different is the ability to own the actual network. And that's what crypto assets themselves represent, is an ownership stake in an underlying network. So when you hear people talk about, for example, layer 1 tokens, what they mean is this is your reward for providing the ledger maintenance services, the computing power to the network that on Web 1 and 2 was done by Google, right? So now people in my hometown of Pueblo, Colorado can actually own the Ethereum network, but they can't own the internet. That's owned by Google and a few other companies. That's what the Project of Crypto is all about, is allowing people to directly own the networks that have native assets that are supporting it. And that's the nature of decentralization, where the token holders are the people who control the asset,
not
Google.
Token holders, for our language here on the Hill, those are digital assets. right, which are the keys to open up the ledger for you to participate, right? So describe to us how those digital assets fit into this internet revolution, Web3.
So the concept is that you have sort of application layer tokens and you have protocol layer tokens. So if I'm an owner of Bitcoin, let's say that I'm a miner of Bitcoin, somebody who actually creates Bitcoin. The Bitcoin is the reward I receive for doing the work to keep the network operational, and that allows me to own a piece of the Bitcoin blockchain. Or take Ethereum, which is easier to understand. The Ether token represents an ownership stake in the network, but on top of that network are all kinds of apps that get built on the network, much like the apps on your phone depend on the underlying network existing that lets the phone operate. And so people will make judgments about which network is likely to win, and they will invest in the tokens in that network much the same way you might invest in Google stock because you think Google is going to scale access to the original internet. The difference being here, you can vote on what happens in the future of a proof of stake network, for example. You can get rewarded through a proof of work token for maintaining a ledger on something like Bitcoin. But the real message here is that what happens on the decentralized internet is decided by the investors versus what happens on the main internet is decided by Twitter, Facebook, Google, and a small number of other companies.
Okay, so getting this layer on digital assets right, for Congress to understand this, everything is built upon that on-ramp to this new internet. So very important for us to be sensitive to how this develops and any actions we take in terms of laws and updating laws to incorporate these new technologies.
Yeah, Mr. McHenry, couldn't agree more. And I think when you hear about all of the problems of different big tech companies, the importance of an owner-controlled network becomes clear.
Ladies and gentlemen, the future is a bright one. So that is it from us. If you guys haven't considered becoming a Patreon already, now is the time to do so. A lot of my Patreons are all big HBAR fans, let's put it that way. And ultimately, we're very positioned for the bull market that we have ahead of us. We are going to sort of close the early bird tier at 500 members, which we're very fastly approaching. And then we'll open a more expensive tier on a monthly basis. And of course, we'll look to do yearly tiers. So do get on board with that whilst the early bird tier is still accessible. On that note, I'm going to love and leave you. Like the video if you've enjoyed this content. A comment is always appreciated with your thoughts. And I'll see you all in the next one. Thanks a lot for watching, ladies and gentlemen. I'll see you all in the next.